This is how they killed your brother.
The alarms began 3 minutes before midnight. Red emergency lights swept across the glass boardroom on the 72nd floor of Kwon Axis Tower, turning every terrified face the color of blood. Outside the windows, a violent storm swallowed the city of Songdo. Rain struck the tower in silver sheets, lightning fractured the dark sky, and the streets far below disappeared beneath gathering water. Inside the boardroom, 60 executives stared at the enormous screen behind CEO Kwon Tae-yul. Critical system failure. Evacuation override disabled. Oxygen levels falling. The doors locked with a mechanical thud. Someone screamed. Another executive grabbed a chair and struck the glass wall, but the reinforced panel did not crack. Tae-yul remained beside the conference table, his expression controlled even as an old terror tightened around his lungs. At 37, he was known as the man who did not panic. He had survived hostile takeovers, public betrayal, family lawsuits, and the collapse of an overseas expansion that nearly destroyed his company. But the warning on the screen was not new to him. He had seen those same words 11 years earlier, moments before a laboratory fire killed his older brother, Kwon Jun-suk. "Open the doors," Tae-yul ordered. His security director, Nam Do-hyun, pressed his access card against the control panel. Nothing happened. He tried again. The panel flashed red. "The system is rejecting every command. Use the emergency staircase. The staircase doors are sealed too." A low vibration moved beneath their feet. The lights flickered. Several executives began shouting at once. At the opposite end of the room, Vice Chairman Kwon Sang-byom loosened his tie and stepped away from the windows. Sang-byom was Tae-yul's uncle, his father's younger brother, and the man who had stood beside the family during every funeral, scandal, and boardroom battle. Yet in that moment, his face did not show confusion. It showed calculation. "This cannot be happening," Sang-byom said. "It already is," a woman answered. Every head turned toward the service entrance. A black woman stood beneath the flashing emergency light in a plain gray housekeeping uniform. Her name badge read Abeni. Her deep brown skin glistened with rainwater, and her shoulder-length micro-twists had fallen loose from the neat knot she normally wore at the nape of her neck. A thin stream of blood ran from her left temple. In one hand, she held a screwdriver. In the other, she held a black access card that had belonged to Tae-yul's dead father. 2 guards moved toward her. "Stop!" Tae-yul commanded. The guards froze. Abeni Diarra looked directly at him. Her amber brown eyes contained fear, but there was no confusion in them. She understood the system. She understood the danger. And somehow, she had expected it. "There are 187 people trapped inside this tower," she said. "If the ventilation shuts down completely, the upper floors will become sealed chambers. The people below may survive. Everyone above the 50th floor will not." Sang-byom stepped forward. "She is a cleaner. Remove her before she causes more damage." Abeni's gaze shifted toward him. Something cold passed across her face. "You knew the system would fail." Silence swallowed the room. Sang-byom's expression changed for less than a second. Tae-yul saw it. Abeni saw it too. She moved toward the central console. One of the guards caught her arm. She twisted free with a speed no one expected from a housekeeper. "Touch that panel and I will have you arrested," Sang-byom warned. "If I do not touch it, you will not live long enough to arrest me." Abeni pressed the black access card against the console. The screen behind Tae-yul changed instantly. The oxygen warning vanished, replaced by thousands of lines of hidden code. Tae-yul felt the blood drain from his face. He recognized the structure. He had seen it once in a sealed investigation file connected to Jun-suk's death. "How do you know that system?" he asked. Abeni's fingers hovered above the keyboard. She looked at him as though the truth might destroy whatever remained of his family. "Because Kwon Axis did not create it." A deep mechanical groan rolled through the building. The oxygen warning appeared again. 6 minutes to total failure. Tae-yul stepped closer. "Then who did?" Before Abeni could answer, Sang-byom lunged for the console. Abeni slammed her palm against the emergency port. The screen flashed white. One name appeared across the entire wall. "Original System Architect. Abeni Diarra." Someone whispered. "That is impossible." Tae-yul stared at her. For 11 years, newspapers had described A.S. Diarra as a reckless foreign engineer, responsible for the fire that killed his brother and 3 members of the research team. Reports claimed the engineer had escaped South Korea before questioning. Others said she had died in Senegal. But Abeni Diarra was alive. She was standing in front of him, wearing a maid's uniform. She had been cleaning his office for 4 months. "You designed the system," Tae-yul said. Abeni's eyes did not leave his. "I designed the system they stole." The lights went out. Darkness crashed over the boardroom. Then a gunshot split the air. 6 weeks earlier, Kwon Tae-yul arrived at his office at 4:17 in the morning. He had not planned to return to Kwon Axis Tower that night. After a 16-hour negotiation with Japanese investors, his driver had taken him halfway to his penthouse before Tae-yul remembered a confidential acquisition file locked inside his desk. His chief of staff offered to retrieve it. Tae-yul refused. He trusted very few people with company documents, and the number had grown smaller since his father, Chairman Kwon Dong-wook, died 2 years earlier. At that hour, the building felt less like a corporate headquarters and more like a monument abandoned by the living. The marble lobby was empty. The elevators moved without music. Rain pressed against the glass walls, and the cleaning staff had already left the executive floors. When Tae-yul stepped onto the 72nd floor, he immediately noticed a line of light beneath his office door. He stopped. Only 3 people had unrestricted access to that office. He was one of them. His chief of staff was asleep at home. The third person had been his father. Tae-yul removed his phone and quietly alerted security, then opened the office door without making a sound. The room appeared empty. His desk stood beneath the wide windows. The city lights shimmered through the rain. Nothing had been disturbed. Then he heard breathing, soft, uneven. He moved around the desk and found a woman sleeping on the carpet beside the window. She had folded her cleaning jacket beneath her head as a pillow. One hand rested against her chest. The other was curled around a small silver flash drive. Tae-yul recognized her. She was one of the evening housekeepers, the quiet one, the woman who never lowered her eyes when senior executives spoke to her, yet never behaved disrespectfully. He had seen her twice before. The first time, she had stopped an intern from being blamed for breaking an expensive sculpture after reviewing the reflection in a glass wall and proving a visiting director had knocked it over. The second time, she had prevented another cleaner from mixing 2 chemicals that could have released poisonous fumes. Both times, she disappeared before anyone could question how she knew so much. Tae-yul crouched beside her. A dark bruise circled her right wrist. Dust stained the knees of her uniform, and a fresh burn marked 2 fingers. Those were not the hands of an ordinary cleaner. Her eyelids moved. She woke suddenly and sat upright. The flash drive vanished into her palm. Her fear lasted only a moment before control returned to her face. "You are in my office," Tae-yul said. Abeni stood slowly. She was 31, though exhaustion made her appear older that night. "I apologize. That does not explain why you are here." "I was tired." Tae-yul glanced at the locked door. "So you chose the most secure office in the building?" "It was quiet. You entered a restricted floor, bypassed electronic security, and fell asleep beside my desk because it was quiet?" Abeni picked up her cleaning jacket. "I made a mistake. You were searching for something." "No. You are not a convincing liar." A flash of pain crossed her eyes. "Neither was your father." The words struck him harder than they should have. Tae-yul straightened. "You knew my father?" Abeni realized she had said too much. She moved toward the door. He stepped into her path. "Give me the drive." Her fingers tightened around it. "It does not belong to you. Anything removed from this office belongs to me." That belief is what created this company's greatest crime. Tae-yul stared at her. Most people could not hold his gaze for 5 seconds. Abeni did, not because she was fearless, but because whatever frightened her was greater than the man standing in front of her. He reached for the flash drive. She pulled back. The drive slipped from her hand and struck the floor. Its silver casing opened. A tiny photograph slid onto the carpet. Tae-yul picked it up. The picture showed his father inside an unfinished laboratory beside a much younger Abeni. She could not have been older than 20. Her hair was in long braids, safety glasses rested above her forehead, and a visitor's badge hung around her neck. Between them stood Tae-yul's older brother, Jun-suk. He was alive, smiling. His arm rested across Abeni's shoulders as though they trusted each other completely. On the back of the photograph, written in Chairman Kwon Dong-wook's handwriting, were 5 words. "She is the only witness." Tae-yul looked up. Abeni's face had lost its calm. "Witness to what?" he asked. She said nothing. "What happened to my brother?" "Move away from the door. Not until you tell me why my father wrote this." You are asking the wrong question. Then give me the right one. Abeni looked toward the ceiling camera. Tae-yul followed her gaze. The small red recording light was off. Someone had disabled it. The right question, she whispered, is who knew I would come here tonight? Before Tae-yul could respond, the dormant television behind his desk switched on by itself. Static filled the screen. Abeni stopped breathing. The interference cleared, revealing Chairman Kwon Dong-wook seated in the private library of the family estate. The recording date appeared in the corner. It had been made 3 days before his death. Tae-yul stepped toward the screen. His father looked thinner than he remembered, with fear hidden beneath his tired eyes. Tae-yul, the recording began, if you are watching this, then Abeni has finally returned. Tae-yul slowly turned toward her. She looked as shocked as he was. I do not know when she will find the courage to come back, his father continued. But when she does, protect her. Do not call the police. Do not tell Sang-byom. And do not believe the investigation report. Tae-yul's heartbeat became the only sound in the office. His father leaned closer to the camera. Whatever they told you about Jun-suk's death was a lie. The video cut to black. At that same moment, the office door locked from the outside. Abeni rushed to the handle and pulled. It did not move. Tae-yul's phone lost its signal. Then a sharp chemical smell entered through the ventilation system. Abeni's face changed. Get away from the vent. What is it? Something meant to make our deaths look accidental. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the private washroom. Tae-yul resisted. How do you know? Abeni looked at the photograph still clenched in his fist. Because this is how they killed your brother. The chemical odor thickened inside Tae-yul's office. It carried a faint sweetness beneath the metallic sting, the kind of smell that seemed harmless until Abeni's eyes began to water. She released his hand, snatched a white hand towel from the private washroom, soaked it beneath the tap, and pressed it against his mouth. Breathe through this. Tae-yul took the towel but did not move. You said this was how they killed my brother. I said move. Tell me what happened. Abeni looked toward the office, as gray vapor curled from the ceiling vents. You will not hear anything if you are unconscious. She shut the washroom door, locked it, then dropped to her knees beside the marble cabinet beneath the sink. Tae-yul watched her remove 2 screws with the small tool hidden inside her uniform pocket. Behind the cabinet was a narrow steel panel. How did you know that was there? He asked. Your father showed me. She pulled the panel open. Cold air rushed into the room. Beyond it was a maintenance passage barely wide enough for one person. Tae-yul stared at the darkness. My father built a secret passage inside my office? Not for himself. Abeni climbed into the opening. For people who might need to escape him. Tae-yul followed before the sentence could settle in his mind. The passage sloped downward between the tower's inner walls. Pipes trembled beside them. Emergency lights flashed weakly along the floor, illuminating years of dust and old electrical cables. Abeni moved quickly despite the bruise on her wrist. Tae-yul noticed the limp she was trying to hide. You are injured. Keep moving. Who hurt you? Someone who searched my apartment tonight. She did not turn around. They took nothing. They only left the door open. Why? To tell me they knew where I slept. The passage narrowed. Tae-yul's shoulder brushed the wall. Behind them, something heavy struck the washroom door. Once, twice. Someone had entered his office. Abeni stopped. They came faster than I expected. Who are they? The people your father warned you about. My uncle? Abeni looked over her shoulder. Her expression gave him no comfort. Your uncle is not the only person who benefits from the dead staying silent. Another impact echoed behind them. The washroom door splintered. Tae-yul reached for his phone, but the screen remained without signal. Security will notice the system failure. The system is not failing. The vents released gas into my office. Exactly. Someone is controlling it perfectly. She continued downward until they reached a rusted service ladder. Tae-yul followed her 3 floors below, where the passage ended behind a removable wall panel. Abeni pressed her ear against it. Voices sounded from the corridor beyond. Security, Tae-yul whispered. Do not call them yet. Nam Do-hyun has protected me for 7 years. And who appointed him? Tae-yul's jaw tightened. My uncle recommended him. Abeni said nothing. She did not need to. Through a narrow crack in the panel, they watched 2 security officers hurry past. Neither man attempted to reach the upper floor. One carried a sealed black case. The other spoke quietly into an earpiece. The office has been neutralized, he said. No bodies yet. Tae-yul's face hardened. He recognized both men. They had stood outside his board meetings. They had traveled with him to Singapore. He had trusted them with his life. Abeni waited until their footsteps disappeared, then slid the panel aside. They entered a dark records room on the 69th floor. Metal shelves surrounded them, filled with archived contracts and obsolete hardware. Tae-yul closed the panel. "We need to contact the police. From a line they may be monitoring? Then tell me what you came here to find." Abeni crossed the room and stopped beside an old filing cabinet. "Proof. Of my brother's murder? Of more than that." She pulled the silver flash drive from her pocket. "This was hidden inside your father's desk. I spent 4 months searching for it. You admitted you were searching my office. I never denied it. I refused to explain it. You entered my company under a false employment history. The name on my badge is real. The woman described in your records is not." Tae-yul stepped closer. "The file says you came to Korea from Portugal 2 years ago. It says you cleaned hotels in Busan. It says you never attended university. That was necessary. You are an engineer, accused of killing my brother." The words echoed through the room. Abeni flinched. Not with guilt, with an old pain she had spent years learning to hide. "I was not accused," she said. "I was chosen." Chosen for what? To carry the blame. She inserted the flash drive into an abandoned computer terminal. The screen remained dark. She opened the side panel, rewired 2 internal cables, and pressed the power switch. The machine hummed to life. A password field appeared. Abeni typed 9 characters. "Access denied." She tried again. "Access denied." "Your father changed the encryption," she whispered. Tae-yul looked at the photograph in his hand. "Use Jun-suk's death date. Your father would never secure evidence with the day his son died. Then use the day the laboratory opened." Abeni glanced at him. "That date was never public. Jun-suk took me there before the launch." She entered the date. The screen unlocked. Dozens of folders appeared, each marked with a year. Some were labeled with company acquisitions. Others carried only initials. One folder bore Abeni's full name. Another bore the name Abeni Diarra. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. Tae-yul noticed. "Who is Abeni Diarra?" "My father." "What does your father have to do with Kwon Axis?" Abeni opened the folder. Scanned contracts appeared. Tae-yul moved closer and read the first page. The document was dated 28 years earlier, before Kwon Axis became a global technology empire. It listed 2 founding partners, Kwon Dong-wook, Musa Ibrahim Diarra. Tae-yul read it again. The company history displayed in every Kwon Axis lobby named his father as the sole founder. "This is forged," he said. Abeni's expression turned bitter. "That is what your family said after my father died. My father never had a partner. Your father had a partner until he realized a dead African engineer could not defend his shares." Tae-yul looked at the next document. It transferred all of Musa Diarra's patents and ownership rights to Kwon Dong-wook following an aircraft accident outside Rabat. The signature at the bottom appeared uneven, broken in places. "My father was left-handed," Abeni said. "That signature was written with the right hand." Tae-yul felt the room tilt beneath him. "You are saying my father stole this company. I am saying Kwon Axis was built by 2 men, and only one family was allowed to inherit it." She opened another file. It contained a legal trust created by Musa Diarra before his death. The beneficiary line displayed Abeni's name. The attached ownership calculation showed 32% of the company's original intellectual property portfolio. Tae-yul looked at her maid's uniform, the bruises on her wrist, the exhaustion in her eyes. "You are not here only as a witness. No. You are here to reclaim the company. I came to reclaim my father's name. And the shares. Money cannot return 28 stolen years. But it can take control away from my family." Abeni closed the document. "Your family took control away from mine first." Tae-yul stepped back. Anger rose inside him, but it had nowhere certain to land. At Abeni, at his father, at the documents, at himself for recognizing the signature discrepancies. He had spent his life defending the Kwon name. In less than 10 minutes, a woman in a housekeeping uniform had shown him that the name might have been built on theft. "Why did Jun-suk know you?" he asked. Abeni looked at the photograph in his hand. "Because your brother discovered the original partnership agreement. He was helping you? He was trying to return what your father stole. My father wrote that you were the only witness. I witnessed the argument before the fire." "Between whom?" Abeni's eyes glistened. but her voice remained steady. Junsuk confronted your father inside the laboratory. Your uncle arrived later. They fought over the documents. Then someone activated the emergency seal. Who? I never saw the face. But you saw something. A hand against the control panel. A family ring, black stone, silver crest. Tae-yul instinctively looked at his own right hand. The men of the Kwon family had received identical rings for 3 generations. His was locked inside his penthouse safe. His father had worn one. His uncle still did. Junsuk had worn his every day. That proves nothing. It proved enough for someone to spend 11 years trying to find me. She opened the final video folder. One file was titled Laboratory Corridor, 02:13 a.m. The date was the night of the fire. Abeni hesitated. I have never seen this recording. Play it. Tae-yul. Play it. She clicked the file. Grainy security footage filled the screen. The corridor outside the laboratory appeared empty. Junsuk entered first, carrying a folder. Abeni followed several minutes later. Chairman Kwon Dong-wook arrived next. Then the picture flickered. At 2:41 a.m., another man approached the laboratory door. He wore a dark coat. His face was hidden beneath the camera angle. He raised his hand to the access panel. A black stone ring flashed beneath the light. Tae-yul leaned closer. The man turned slightly. His face became visible. Abeni looked at Tae-yul. Tae-yul stared at the screen. The person entering the laboratory was not his uncle, it was not his father, it was Tae-yul himself. He appeared younger, pale, and unsteady, but there was no mistake. 11 years earlier, minutes before the fire killed his brother, Kwon Tae-yul had entered the laboratory. He had no memory of being there. Behind them, the records room door opened. Nam Do-hyun stepped inside, raised a gun, and aimed it directly at Abeni's heart. Nam Do-hyun's gun remained aimed at Abeni's heart. Tae-yul moved in front of her without thinking. Lower the weapon. Do-hyun's eyes shifted toward the open doorway behind them. Get down, the gun fired. Tae-yul felt Abeni pull him toward the floor as the bullet passed above his shoulder. A man standing in the corridor cried out and collapsed against the doorframe. He wore the uniform of tower security, but a black wire ran from his collar to an unregistered earpiece. A second gun slipped from his hand and struck the floor. Do-hyun rushed forward, kicked the weapon away, then locked the records room door. We have less than 4 minutes before the others reach this floor. Abeni stared at him. You aimed at me. Because the camera above you was active. She looked up. A tiny lens sat between 2 ceiling panels. A fresh bullet hole had shattered it. You could have warned us. And warned them too. Tae-yul grabbed Do-hyun by the jacket. Your men released gas into my office. They are not my men anymore. You hired them. Your uncle supplied their records. Do-hyun pushed Tae-yul's hands away. You can punish me later if we survive long enough. He opened the black case carried by the fallen guard. Inside were 3 syringes, plastic restraints, 2 phones without serial numbers, and a folded medical certificate bearing Tae-yul's name. Tae-yul reached for it. The certificate was dated 11 years earlier, the morning after the laboratory fire. It recorded a blood alcohol level high enough to explain confusion, but beneath the printed result was a handwritten toxicology code. What is this? He asked. Abeni took the paper. Her eyes moved across the numbers. Midazolam, a sedative. I was never treated at a hospital that night. Do-hyun looked at him. Yes, you were. The room became still. At 3:18 that morning, a patrol officer found you unconscious inside a car near the Incheon waterfront. There was blood on your shirt, burns on your left hand, and an injection mark beneath your elbow. Tae-yul looked down at his arm as though the mark might still be there. I woke in my apartment. Your father's physician moved you before sunrise. Why do I not remember any of this? Because you had been drugged before you entered the laboratory. Abeni's gaze sharpened. You knew he was there. I knew after the fire. Chairman Kwon ordered every report destroyed. Tae-yul stepped toward him. My father erased evidence that I was at the scene where my brother died. He said he was protecting you. From what? Do-hyun's voice lowered. From the possibility that you opened the laboratory door. Tae-yul stopped. The security recording replayed inside his head. His younger face. His hand on the access panel. The black family ring. Abeni stood several feet away now, watching him with an expression he could not read. Do you believe I killed Junsuk? He asked her. I believe someone wanted the recording to show you entering. That was not my question. I do not know what you did. Her honesty hurt more than an accusation. Do-hyun removed a small device from his pocket and placed it against the archive computer. The building network has already traced this terminal. Copy everything. Abeni connected the flash drive. A loading bar appeared. 3 minutes. Do-hyun opened the back cabinet and pulled a metal shelf away from the wall, revealing another service door. There is a freight elevator beyond this passage. It will take us to the underground loading bay. Tae-yul did not move. Why should I trust you? You should not. Do-hyun handed him the gun taken from the fallen officer. But your father trusted me enough to give me one instruction before he died. What instruction? Keep Abeni Diarra alive, even if Tae-yul hates you for it. Abeni turned sharply. Chairman Kwon knew where I was? Not exactly. He knew you had survived. How? Every year, on the anniversary of the fire, someone sent him a photograph of you. The color left her face. From where? Dakar, Lisbon, Montreal, Casablanca. Whoever sent them wanted him to understand that you could be reached. Abeni wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking less like the fearless woman who had broken into a protected office, and more like someone who had spent 11 years waiting for a door to open behind her. Tae-yul noticed her breathing change. Abeni, do not. You are shaking. I said do not. The loading bar reached 40%. Footsteps sounded outside the records room. Someone tested the locked door. Then a voice came through the other side. Director Nam, Vice Chairman Kwon wants the woman alive. Abeni closed her eyes. Tae-yul raised the gun. Do-hyun shook his head. Firing will bring the entire floor down on us. The voice returned. The CEO is expendable. Tae-yul looked at Do-hyun. You heard him. I did. Then stop protecting me and open the exit. Do-hyun pulled the hidden service door wider. Abeni remained beside the computer, watching the loading bar. 62%. The men outside began striking the lock. Tae-yul moved closer to her. Leave the files. They are the reason I came back. They are not worth your life. You do not get to decide what my father's name is worth. And you do not get to die proving a dead man was innocent. She looked at him. Anger rose in her eyes. Your family had funerals. Your family had newspapers printing condolences. My father was called a thief after his death. My mother lost our home. I was 19 when Korean investigators put my face on television and called me a murderer. Do not tell me what proof is worth. The words struck him into silence. The loading bar reached 78%. The door bent inward. Tae-yul stepped between Abeni and the entrance. Then finish it. She stared at his back. What are you doing? Paying the first part of a debt I did not know I owed. Something changed in her face. Not trust, not yet, but the certainty that he was only another Kwon man protecting the family name began to weaken. Do-hyun braced himself beside the door. 90%. The lock cracked. A gloved hand appeared through the opening. Tae-yul struck it with the gun. A man shouted, 97. The door gave way. Do-hyun fired once into the ceiling. Dust and sparks rained down, forcing the attackers back. Now. Abeni ripped the flash drive from the computer. They ran through the service door as bullets struck the cabinet behind them. Do-hyun sealed the passage and released an old fire barrier. The three of them descended a steel staircase into the dark machinery levels beneath the tower. Tae-yul followed Abeni closely. Her limp had worsened. Your ankle. It is fine. It is not. Do you interrogate everyone while escaping assassination? Only the people who refuse help. She almost smiled. The expression appeared so briefly he wondered whether he imagined it. At the bottom of the stairs, Do-hyun led them into an abandoned mechanical control room. Thick pipes crossed the ceiling. An emergency lamp cast a weak yellow circle over an old table. We can remain here for 10 minutes, he said. After that, we separate. Abeni inserted the flash drive into an offline maintenance terminal. The copied files opened. One folder had appeared that was not visible before. It was protected by a voice lock. The title read, Memory Protocol, KTY. Tae-yul stared at his initials. Abeni clicked it. A recording of Chairman Kwon filled the room. Authorization phrase required. Tae-yul swallowed. What phrase? Abeni looked at the photograph of Jun-suk. On the front, his brother wore the silver compass pendant he had carried since childhood. Tae-yul remembered the sentence Jun-suk used whenever they became lost during family hiking trips. He leaned toward the microphone. North is not always home. The folder opened. Medical scans, treatment notes, and audio files appeared. The first report confirmed repeated doses of a memory-blocking sedative in Tae-yul's bloodstream after the fire. The second contained a psychiatric assessment describing induced recall disruption. Abeni opened the final audio file. Tae-yul's younger voice came through the speakers, weak and terrified. "Jun-suk told me to run." Another voice asked, "Who locked the laboratory?" Tae-yul's recorded breathing became frantic. "I do not know." "What did you see?" "A ring." "Whose ring?" "Mine." The recording ended. Tae-yul stared at the terminal. "Someone put my ring on another person," Abeni whispered. "Or made you believe they did." Do-hyun opened another document. It was a death certification list from the laboratory fire. 4 victims were named, including Kwon Jun-suk. Beside each name was a body identification number. Abeni compared the numbers with the forensic annex. Her fingers stopped. "These do not match." "What do you mean?" Tae-yul asked. "Jun-suk's dental record was attached to another victim. The body your family buried was not your brother." Tae-yul gripped the table. "Then where was he?" Abeni searched the copied financial files. A hidden payment ledger appeared, listing monthly transfers from a Kwon Axis shell company to a private neurological facility on Jeojae Island. The payments had continued for 11 years. The patient was identified only as KJ01. The final transfer had been made 3 days earlier. Attached to it was a surveillance photograph. A thin man stood beside the sea, his hair touched with gray, a scar running across the left side of his face. Tae-yul moved closer until his knees struck the table. The man in the photograph wore a silver compass pendant. Jun-suk was alive. Before Tae-yul could speak, the terminal displayed a new message. "Live connection detected." A video window opened. The scarred man appeared on the screen, looking directly into the camera. His lips trembled when he saw Tae-yul. "You finally remembered me," Jun-suk said. Then someone placed a gun against the back of his head. The gun pressed against the back of Jun-suk's head. On the flickering terminal screen, Tae-yul's older brother did not look away from the camera. 11 years had altered him. The confident young man from the photograph was gone. His cheeks had hollowed. A pale burn scar curved from his left temple to his jaw, pulling slightly at the corner of his eye. Yet the silver compass pendant remained around his neck. Tae-yul moved closer to the screen. "Jun-suk." His brother's expression broke for 1 second. "Do not come here." Abeni reached for the keyboard. "Where are you?" "You already know." Jun-suk's eyes shifted toward someone beyond the camera. "They wanted you to find the payments." Do-hyun drew his gun and turned toward the control room entrance. "This connection is tracing us." Tae-yul ignored him. "Who has you?" "The same person who made you open the laboratory door." "Tell me his name." Jun-suk laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You still think this is about one man." The weapon pushed harder against his skull. Jun-suk closed his eyes. "Abeni, listen carefully." Her fingers stopped above the keyboard. "I am listening. The night of the fire, you gave me something." Pain moved across her face. "The partnership agreement." "Not that." "What else?" Jun-suk looked directly at Tae-yul. "His life." Tae-yul's breath caught. Abeni stepped back from the terminal. "Do not." "He deserves to know." "This is not the time." "There may never be another time." Jun-suk's voice weakened. "Tae-yul, you did enter the laboratory. You were drugged, confused, and carrying a security override. Someone told you I was trapped. When you opened the door, the emergency seal activated. The fire suppression system released oxygen instead of foam." Tae-yul remembered nothing, yet his body reacted as though the scene lived somewhere beneath his skin. His burned hand began to ache. "What did Abeni do?" he asked. Jun-suk swallowed. "She carried you out." Tae-yul turned toward her. Abeni stared at the floor. "You were unconscious." Jun-suk continued. "The corridor was burning. She dragged you through the maintenance tunnel and gave you her breathing mask. She went back for me, but the ceiling collapsed. Why did no one tell me?" "Because our father found you before the police did. He believed you had caused the explosion. He sent Abeni away and erased her from the rescue report." Tae-yul's gaze remained fixed on her. "You saved me." Abeni's voice was quiet. "I failed to save him. You were 19. I was the system architect. I should have known someone had changed the emergency sequence." "You were 19, Tae-yul repeated. "And you came back into a burning laboratory." She finally looked at him. The anger in her eyes could not hide the guilt beneath it. "Your brother was still inside." On the screen, Jun-suk leaned closer. Do not let her carry that anymore. A door opened behind him. The camera shook. A muffled voice said, "Time." Jun-suk's eyes widened. Abeni, the blueprints were never the real target. Your father hid something inside the original patent. Something worth more than the company. What? Ask your mother. Abeni went completely still. My mother is dead. Jun-suk's expression changed. No, Sophia is. The screen went black. Tae-yul struck the keyboard. Jun-suk. The terminal displayed connection terminated. Location trace, GOJ Island. Then the entire maintenance system began shutting down. Do-hyun grabbed the flash drive. We leave now. Abeni did not move. He said my mother. He may have been forced to say it, Do-hyun replied. My mother died 8 years ago in Marseille. Did you see her body? Tae-yul asked. Abeni looked at him sharply. Do not do that. I am asking because Jun-suk is alive after we buried him. My mother was ill. I spoke to the nurse. I received the death certificate. Documents can be forged. I know that better than you. Her voice cracked on the final word. Tae-yul stepped toward her, but she backed away. Do not touch me. He stopped immediately. The pipes above them shuddered as the building's hidden security network searched the machinery floors. Do-hyun opened a grated exit leading into an underground utility tunnel. GOJ is 4 hours away by road. Every airport, station, and company vehicle will be watched. Then we take a car that does not belong to the company, Tae-yul said. Your face is recognized everywhere. Not where we are going. 30 minutes later, the three of them emerged through a storm drain 2 streets behind Kwon Axis Tower. Rain poured over the city. Tae-yul removed his suit jacket and placed it around Abeni's shoulders. She almost rejected it, then noticed the blood soaking through the side of her uniform. You were cut, he said. The service panel. You said you were fine. I was trying to keep us alive. Those are not the same thing. Do-hyun led them to a 24-hour delivery garage operated by an elderly mechanic named Oh Man-gil, a former military driver who had once served with Chairman Kwon. Man-gil opened the side door, took one look at Tae-yul, and locked the garage behind them. Your father said this night might come, he said. Tae-yul stared at him. How many people knew my family was lying to me? Man-gil lowered his eyes. Enough to be ashamed, not enough to stop it. While Do-hyun arranged transport, Man-gil's widowed daughter, Oh Seol-bi, cleaned the wound along Abeni's ribs. Tae-yul waited outside the small office, listening to the rain hammer the metal roof. When Abeni emerged, she wore Seol-bi's dark sweater and loose trousers. Without the maid's uniform, she looked different. Not wealthier, not weaker, simply less hidden. Tae-yul handed her a cup of hot tea. I do not need it. Your hands are cold. She looked down. They were trembling again. This time, she accepted the cup. Thank you. It was the first gentle thing she had said to him. Tae-yul sat across from her on an overturned crate. Why did you never tell me you saved me? What would I have said? Hello, I clean your office, your family stole my father's company, and 11 years ago I carried you out of a laboratory while your brother burned. Jun-suk did not die. I believed he did. You still saved me. Abeni stared into the tea. For years I hated you because you were allowed to forget. Tae-yul did not defend himself. You woke in your home surrounded by people protecting you, she continued. I woke in a police station with investigators calling me a foreign saboteur. Your father's lawyers offered me money to disappear. When I refused, evidence appeared in my apartment. What evidence? A detonator, laboratory access codes, a transfer from a company I had never heard of. My father framed you. Your father gave me a choice. Leave Korea that night or spend the rest of my life in prison. Tae-yul's fingers tightened around his cup. He owed you his son's life. He believed protecting his remaining son justified destroying someone else's daughter. The emotional debt settled between them, heavier than anger. Tae-yul lowered his voice. I cannot change what he did. No, but I can expose it. Even if it destroys your family? If the truth destroys us, then the lie was the only thing holding us together. Abeni studied him. For the first time, she did not look at him as an extension of the Kwon family. She looked at him as a man making a choice. If you believe a person should face the truth even when it could cost them everything, comment truth below, because the decision Tae-yul made in that garage would soon force him to choose between the brother he had mourned and the woman his family had sacrificed. Before dawn, Man-gil gave them an old refrigerated delivery truck registered to a seafood company. Do-hyun drove. Tae-yul and Abeni sat in the dark cargo compartment among empty plastic crates. The road curved south through heavy rain. For the first hour, neither spoke. Abeni eventually rested her head against the metal wall. Exhaustion pulled at her eyes. "Sleep," Tae-yul said. "The last time you saw me sleeping, you accused me of theft. You were holding stolen evidence. Evidence stolen from thieves." Despite himself, Tae-yul smiled. Abeni noticed. Something unfamiliar softened between them. She closed her eyes but remained upright. When the truck turned sharply, her injured side struck the wall. Tae-yul moved beside her. "Lean here." He offered his shoulder. She hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, she rested against him. Tae-yul remained completely still. He could feel the controlled rhythm of her breathing. He understood that it was not affection. It was exhaustion. Yet the trust required for her to close her eyes beside a Kwon man felt more intimate than anything he had experienced in years. 3 hours later, they reached Gyeoje Island. The private neurological facility stood beyond a pine forest overlooking the sea. The gates were open. No guards stood outside, no lights burned in the windows. Do-hyun parked behind an abandoned service building. "They knew we were coming. Jun-suk warned us not to come," Abeni said. Tae-yul loaded the gun. He also made sure we could find him. They entered through the rear medical wing. The corridors smelled of disinfectant and salt water. Patient rooms stood empty. Beds remained unmade. IV bags still hung beside them, as though everyone had vanished minutes earlier. In the basement, they discovered a secure ward containing one occupied room. Tae-yul approached the bed. A thin figure lay beneath a white sheet. The silver compass pendant rested on the chest. "Jun-suk." He pulled the sheet back. The man was not his brother. It was a stranger wearing a silicone mask shaped like Jun-suk's scarred face. Abeni stepped toward the wall. Photographs covered it. Hundreds of photographs. Tae-yul entering restaurants. Tae-yul at his father's funeral. Abeni cleaning Kwon Tae-yul's tower. Abeni sleeping in her apartment. At the center was a recent picture of them inside Tae-yul's office. Beneath it, someone had written, "The heirs have finally met." Abeni removed one photograph from the wall. It showed her mother, Abeni Diarra, standing alive beside Jun-suk only 2 weeks earlier. On the back was an address in Seoul. Tae-yul looked over her shoulder. "Your mother is alive." Abeni's hand shook. Before she could answer, Do-hyun locked the basement door from the outside. Tae-yul spun around. "Do-hyun!" Through the narrow glass window, the security director looked at them with regret. "I am sorry," he said. "But Jun-suk told me only one of you could leave this island alive." Tae-yul struck the locked basement door with his shoulder. "Open it, Do-hyun." The security director remained beyond the narrow glass panel, his face pale beneath the corridor light. "I cannot. You said my father ordered you to protect Abeni." "He did." "Then why are you trapping her?" Do-hyun looked toward the ceiling as a faint electronic pulse began moving through the facility. Red lights flashed above the basement door. "Because this building is wired to identify 2 biometric signatures. Yours and hers. The moment both of you entered this room, the destruction sequence activated." Abeni stepped toward the control panel beside the bed. "How long?" 7 minutes. Tae-yul's anger sharpened. "Then unlock the door. The lock is connected to the same sequence. If I force it open, the explosives detonate immediately. You said only one of us could leave alive. That was the message Jun-suk sent me 3 days ago." Do-hyun removed his phone and pressed it against the window. A recording played through the speaker. Jun-suk's voice sounded weak and breathless. "When Tae-yul reaches the island with Abeni, separate them. The underground ward is designed to read both bloodlines. It will not release them together. One must remain inside, or everyone in the facility will die." The message ended. Abeni looked around the basement. Bloodlines. Her gaze moved to the photographs, the fake body, and the medical equipment. This place was not built only to hold Jun-suk. Tae-yul followed her toward the far wall. Behind the photographs were tiny sensors embedded in the concrete. Each carried the faded symbol of Abeni Diarra's original research company. "My father's technology," Abeni whispered. "What technology?" "Biometric encryption." He believed the safest system was one that recognized inherited biological patterns, not fingerprints or passwords. A lock opened by family DNA. Not opened, divided. Abeni removed one of the wall panels. Beneath it were 2 circular scanners. One carried the Kwon crest. The other carried a small geometric symbol shaped like a rising sun. She touched it carefully. "This was my father's signature." Do-hyun checked the corridor behind him. 5 minutes. Tae-yul examined the scanners. If the room requires one person to remain, I will stay. Abeni turned toward him. You do not understand the system. I understand enough. This is not a heroic decision. It is not heroism. His voice lowered. It is debt. Your death will not repay me. Maybe not. He looked into her eyes. But yours would make everything my family did permanent. Abeni's expression tightened. Do not speak as though my life matters only because it can correct your family's mistakes. That is not why it matters. The words escaped before he could control them. Silence passed between them. Even the alarms seemed to fade behind the weight of what he had admitted. Abeni searched his face. Then why? Tae-yul stepped closer. Because when I thought my brother was dead, I spent 11 years feeling as if something inside me had been buried with him. You walked into my office carrying every answer I was afraid to ask for. You challenged me. You saved me twice. And when you leaned against me in that truck, I realized I was more afraid of losing you than I was of discovering what my family had done. Abeni's breathing changed. The space between them became dangerously small. You barely know me. I know you returned to a country that destroyed your name because the truth mattered more than your fear. That is not enough to love someone. I did not say love. Pain flashed across her face before she could hide it. Tae-yul saw it. So did she. He lifted one hand but stopped before touching her cheek. Not yet, he said quietly. Abeni looked away. 4 minutes, Do-hyun warned. She forced her attention back to the scanners. The system expects 2 bloodlines. There may be another way to satisfy it. She opened the silver flash drive and removed the tiny photograph. Beneath the image was a transparent strip stained with a dark brown mark. Blood, Tae-yul said. My father's, Abeni replied. He cut his hand the night the photograph was taken. Jun-suk told me to keep this because Musa's systems could recognize genetic material years later. She pressed the strip against the Diarra scanner. The rising sun symbol illuminated. 1 line accepted, the computer announced. Tae-yul placed his hand against the Kwon scanner. A needle pierced his palm. The crest turned white. 2nd line accepted. Conflict detected. Abeni studied the screen. It does not want 1 Kwon and 1 Diarra. It wants a genetic sequence carrying both. That is impossible. The system displayed a hidden genealogical file. 2 names appeared. Musa Ibrahim Diarra. Kwon Eun-hee. Tae-yul stared at the 2nd name. Eun-hee was my grandmother. Abeni opened the file. A marriage certificate appeared, dated 30 years earlier in Morocco. It named Musa Diarra and Kwon Eun-hee as husband and wife. Beneath it was a birth certificate for a daughter born 18 months later. Safia Eun Diarra. Abeni stopped breathing. My mother. Tae-yul read the document again. Your mother was my grandmother's daughter. That would make her my father's half-sister. Do-hyun's face changed beyond the glass. And Abeni is your father's niece. Tae-yul stepped back as the truth rearranged the history of both families. His father had not merely stolen from a business partner. He had stolen from his own sister's husband. Kwon Axis had always belonged to both bloodlines because the bloodlines had never been separate. Abeni pressed her hand against the scanner. The machine pierced her palm. Both symbols turned green. Unified error detected, the computer announced. The basement door unlocked. The countdown stopped at 1 minute and 12 seconds. Do-hyun pulled the door open. Move. Tae-yul and Abeni followed him into the corridor. Before they reached the stairs, the building's lights died. A recorded voice filled the facility. It belonged to Safia Diarra. Abeni, if you are hearing this, then you have finally discovered why I disappeared. Abeni froze. Her mother's voice continued. I did not abandon you. I was taken because I carried the only living proof that the Kwon and Diarra families were one family before greed divided them. A wall panel slid open, revealing a narrow room containing old medical records and a single metal case. Inside the case was an original patent ledger signed by Musa, Eun-hee, and Chairman Kwon Dong-wook. There was also a handwritten letter addressed to Abeni. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. My daughter, I spent years teaching you to survive. But I never taught you how to live without looking over your shoulder. Forgive me. Jun-suk found me after the fire. He kept me hidden because Sang-byom believed I was dead. But hiding became another kind of prison, and I allowed fear to steal 11 years from both of us. Do not trust the photographs. Do not trust the facility records. Most of all, do not trust the person who claims Jun-suk is a prisoner. He is not being held on Jeojae Island. He built this place. Abeni lowered the letter. Tae-yul stared at the empty corridor. Jun-suk built the facility? Do-hyun looked troubled. That is impossible. He was barely conscious when I last saw him. When was that? Tae-yul asked. Do-hyun hesitated. 9 years ago. You knew he was alive for 9 years? Tae-yul grabbed him and slammed him against the wall. You watched me bury him. Your father made me swear. Everyone keeps using my father as an excuse. Because he was trying to stop something worse. What could be worse than this? Do-hyun looked at Abeni. Jun-suk did not survive the fire unchanged. He woke believing both families had betrayed him. He stopped asking for justice. He began planning punishment. A siren sounded outside. Through the basement windows, headlights appeared between the trees. At least 6 vehicles surrounded the facility. Abeni folded her mother's letter and placed it inside her sweater. Sangbyom found us. Do-hyun shook his head. Those are not company vehicles. The front doors opened. Armed men entered in silence. Each wore a silver compass symbol on the shoulder. Tae-yul recognized it from his brother's pendant. A speaker crackled above them. Jun-suk's voice filled the building. Brother, you spent 11 years mourning me. Abeni spent 11 years hating your family. Now I will give both of you what you came for. Tae-yul looked toward the ceiling camera. Where is Sophia? Alive. Abeni stepped beneath the camera. Let me speak to her. Soon. You said one of us had to die. Jun-suk's laughter was quiet and broken. No. I told Do-hyun one of you had to remain. He assumed I meant death. The armed men raised their weapons. Jun-suk continued. Abeni may leave the island and reclaim her father's company. Tae-yul may remain. An answer for opening the door that burned me alive. Abeni moved in front of Tae-yul. He was drugged, and yet his hand still opened it. Who drugged him? Jun-suk fell silent. Tell us, Tae-yul demanded. Who sent me into that laboratory? A new video appeared on the wall. The footage showed the night of the fire from another camera angle. A younger Tae-yul stood in a parking garage, barely conscious. Someone supported him by the shoulders, placed the black family ring on his finger, and whispered instructions into his ear. The person turned toward the camera. Abeni's knees almost gave way. The woman drugging Tae-yul was Abeni Diarra, her mother. The woman on the screen supported Tae-yul's drugged body with one arm while forcing a syringe into the vein beneath his elbow. Abeni Diarra's face was younger, but Abeni recognized the concentration in her eyes, the small scar beside her mouth, and the gold bracelet she had worn throughout Abeni's childhood. Tae-yul watched Safia place the black family ring on his finger. Then she leaned close to his ear and whispered something the silent camera could not capture. The footage ended with Tae-yul stumbling toward the laboratory corridor. For several seconds, no one inside the neurological facility spoke. The armed men wearing silver compass symbols remained positioned around them. Do-hyun stared at the blank screen. Abeni looked as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. My mother sent you into the laboratory, she whispered. Tae-yul did not answer. His eyes remained fixed on the screen. But the anger Abeni expected was not there. There was only pain. She used you, Abeni continued. She placed the ring on your hand. She made you open the door. We do not know what she whispered. Does it matter? Yes. Tae-yul turned toward her. Because someone has shown us exactly what they wanted us to see since the moment we entered this building. Abeni shook her head. Do not defend her because you think it will protect me. I am not protecting you. His voice remained calm. I am questioning evidence created by a man who already lied about one of us having to die. Above them, Jun-suk's voice emerged through the speaker. You always were stubborn, little brother. Tae-yul lifted his face toward the nearest camera. Show us the entire recording. You saw enough. Then you are afraid of what comes before it. Silence followed. Abeni looked again at the frozen image. Something disturbed her. She moved closer until her face was inches from the screen. Play the final 10 seconds again. The recording repeated. Sophia injected Tae-yul. She placed the ring on his finger. She whispered to him. He walked away. Abeni watched it a second time. Then a third. Stop. The image froze on Sophia's hand. The bracelet changes wrists. Tae-yul stepped beside her. In the first frame, Sophia's gold bracelet was on her left wrist. When she placed the ring on Tae-yul's finger, it appeared on her right. Do-hyun examined the timestamp. There is a 12-second jump. The footage was reversed and rearranged, Abeni said. She turned toward the camera. You edited it. Jun-suk did not respond. Abeni moved to the terminal and began searching the system files. One of the armed men stepped forward. Tae-yul raised the gun Do-hyun had given him. Let her work. The man looked toward the camera, waiting for instructions. None came. Abeni opened the video properties and found 4 deleted fragments hidden beneath the final recording. He did not expect us to access the source files. Or he wanted you to find them, Do-hyun warned. Then we find out why. Abeni restored the first fragment. The parking garage appeared again. Tae-yul was already unconscious on the floor. A different person knelt beside him. The man wore gloves, but the black stone ring was visible above the fabric. He injected something into Tae-yul's arm, removed Tae-yul's own ring from his pocket, and placed it on his finger. When he stood, his face entered the camera's view. It was Kwon Sang-beom, Tae-yul's uncle. Abeni restored the second fragment. Sophia ran into the garage moments later. She checked Tae-yul's pulse, removed a syringe from her bag, and injected him again. She was not giving him the sedative, Abeni said. She was trying to reverse it. Flumazanil, Do-hyun replied. An antidote for midazolam. The third fragment contained sound. Sophia pulled the black ring from Tae-yul's finger, but he woke suddenly and grabbed her wrist. Jun-suk, he mumbled. He is trapped. No, Sophia told him. That is what Sang-beom wants you to believe. Do not enter the laboratory. Tae-yul struggled to stand. The drug had left him confused. Sophia tried to hold him, but he pushed her away. During the struggle, the ring fell between them. Tae-yul picked it up and placed it back on his finger, believing it belonged to him. Sophia followed as he stumbled toward the corridor. The fourth fragment showed her reaching for him seconds before he used the override code. The emergency door closed between them. Sophia struck the glass and screamed his name. The footage ended. Abeni covered her mouth. The accusation against her mother collapsed, leaving behind a more painful question. Why did Jun-suk show us the false version? Tae-yul looked toward the camera. Because he wanted us divided. The speakers crackled. Jun-suk's voice returned, colder now. Division is what kept both of you alive. No, Abeni said. Division kept you in control. One of the armed men moved toward her. She did not step back. You brought us here. You planted the photographs. You created the false message about one person remaining. And you placed forged family documents inside that case. Tae-yul turned sharply. Forged? Abeni removed the marriage certificate and held it beneath the emergency light. I did not notice it before because I was frightened. The birth year beside Kwon Eun-hee's name is wrong. Your grandmother was born in 1938. This woman was born in 1951. Tae-yul took the paper. The names are identical, but they are not the same person. She opened the original system instructions on the terminal. And unified heir does not mean one person carrying both bloodlines. It means 2 authorized descendants activating the trust together. 1 Diarra heir, 1 Kwon heir. She looked directly at Tae-yul. We are not related. Relief moved across his face before he could hide it. Abeni noticed. Their eyes held for a second too long. Even surrounded by weapons, lies, and the ghost of his brother, something warm and dangerous passed between them. Jun-suk's bitter laughter filled the room. Is that the discovery that comforts you most? Tae-yul's jaw tightened. Come out and speak to us. A metal door opened at the end of the corridor. Footsteps approached slowly. The armed men lowered their weapons as Kwon Jun-suk entered the room. He wore a black coat over a simple gray shirt. The scar across his face was deeper in person, and his left hand trembled beside him. The silver compass pendant rested against his chest. Tae-yul stared at the brother he had mourned for 11 years. Jun-suk stopped several feet away. Neither man moved. You are alive, Tae-yul said. That appears to disappoint everyone eventually. Tae-yul crossed the space between them and struck him across the face. The armed men raised their weapons. Jun-suk lifted one hand, stopping them. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Tae-yul grabbed his coat. I buried you. You buried what our father gave you. I spoke to an empty grave for 11 years. And I spent 11 years remembering the sound of the door you opened. Tae-yul released him as though the words had burned his hands. I was drugged. I know. Then why are you punishing me? Jun-suk's expression twisted. Because knowing something in your mind does not remove it from your nightmares. Abeni stepped between them. Where is my mother? Jun-suk looked at her, and for the first time his anger weakened. Safe. I want to see her. You will. Now, she does not want you involved. Abeni's eyes hardened. She lost the right to make that choice when she allowed me to believe she was dead. A door opened behind Jun-suk. A woman appeared, supported by a wooden cane. Her once black hair was threaded with silver, and illness had thinned her face, but Abeni recognized her immediately. The gold bracelet remained on her left wrist. "Mama," Abeni whispered. Sophia's cane slipped from her hand. Abeni did not run to her at first. 11 years of grief held her still. Even if the evidence uploads, ownership will already be gone. Abeni stared at the system. He is right. The transfer will complete before this reaches 100%. Tae-yul looked at the patent ledger. Can the original owners revoke every license? Only if both authorized heirs sign from the central board terminal. Then we go upstairs. The exits are sealed. A loud metallic impact shook the room. The crawlspace door reopened. Jun-suk fell through it, blood spreading across his shirt. Behind him was a narrow emergency ladder leading toward the boardroom. "Go," he whispered. Tae-yul caught him before he struck the floor. "You are coming with us." "There is no time." Abeni dropped beside him and pressed both hands against the wound. Jun-suk's eyes found hers. "Your father was right about you. Save your strength. He said you would finish what all of us were too afraid to begin." The upload reached 100%. Phones began vibrating across Seoul as the evidence spread, but on the boardroom monitor, Sung-byum pressed his thumb against the final authorization panel. Transfer completion, 60 seconds. Tae-yul lifted Jun-suk into Do-hyun's arms, then took Abeni's hand. Together, they climbed the emergency ladder toward the boardroom. When they reached the final hatch, Tae-yul pushed it open. Every director turned. Sung-byum stared at them as if the dead had walked into the room. Abeni stepped onto the marble floor, wearing borrowed clothes stained with Jun-suk's blood. Tae-yul stood beside her. The transfer countdown showed 22 seconds. Sang-byum raised a gun and aimed it at Abeni. "You should have remained a maid," he said. Tae-yul moved in front of her. Sang-byum smiled and shifted the weapon toward his nephew's heart. "And you should have remained asleep." The countdown reached 5 seconds. Sang-byum pulled the trigger. Sang-byum pulled the trigger. The gunshot exploded through the boardroom. Abeni felt Tae-yul's body jerk in front of her. For one terrible second, he remained standing, his hand still wrapped around hers. Then blood appeared across the shoulder of his white shirt. "Tae-yul!" Abeni caught him as he fell against the conference table. Screams erupted around them. Directors scattered. Sang-byum raised the weapon again, but before he could fire, a silver compass pendant swung across his vision. Jun-suk emerged through the open floor hatch and struck his uncle's wrist with a metal bar. The gun slid across the marble. Do-hyun climbed behind him and kicked it beneath the table. Sang-byum lunged for Abeni, but Tae-yul caught his ankle despite the blood pouring from his shoulder. Sang-byum fell hard. Jun-suk pressed him against the floor. "You should have made certain the fire killed me," Jun-suk whispered. Sang-byum stared at the nephew he had buried 11 years earlier. Terror emptied the confidence from his face. "You are dead." "No." Jun-suk tightened his grip. "I am evidence." The transfer countdown reached 1 second. A sharp tone filled the boardroom. Transfer failed. Original ownership dispute detected. All patent licenses temporarily suspended. Sang-byum's face twisted. "What did you do?" Abeni lowered Tae-yul carefully against the table and rushed toward the board terminal. The screen displayed 2 authorization spaces. One carried the Kwon crest. The other carried Musa Diarra's rising sun symbol. "My father designed the patents to return to their original owners if anyone attempted an unauthorized transfer," she said. "The transfer could never succeed without both heirs." Sang-byum laughed desperately. "You think a few old documents make you an heir? You were cleaning floors 6 hours ago." Abeni turned toward him. Her borrowed sweater was stained with blood. Her micro-twists had come loose around her face. She had no expensive suit, no security detail, and no powerful title protecting her. Yet every person in the boardroom watched her. "I cleaned those floors because your men destroyed my qualifications, my reputation, and every safe place I tried to build," she said. "But honest work never made me small. Your crimes did not make you powerful. They only made you afraid of anyone who knew the truth." Sang-byum tried to rise. Jun-suk forced him back down. Abeni connected the original patent ledger to the central system. The evidence uploaded onto the boardroom's enormous screens. Musa's final recording played. Sang Byom appeared inside the aircraft, planting the device that caused the crash. Several directors covered their mouths. Others reached for their phones. The screen changed again, showing Sang Byom drugging Tae-yul in the parking garage. Then came the laboratory records, the altered emergency sequence, the forged evidence placed inside Abeni's apartment, the secret payments to the neurological facility, and the shell companies used to sell Musa's biometric technology. Sang Byom looked around the room. "Turn it off." No one moved. "I said turn it off." Police sirens rose from the street below. Do-hyun looked through the windows. The evidence reached the Financial Crimes Unit, the National Police, and every major broadcaster. Your people cannot stop all of them. Sang Byom's expression changed. "You sent the files outside the company?" "Before we climbed into this room," Abeni answered. "You were fighting to control a secret that no longer existed." The boardroom doors opened. Armed officers entered, followed by investigators carrying cameras. Sang Byom struggled against Jun-suk. "I am the acting chairman of Kwon Axis." Tae-yul pushed himself upright, one hand pressed against his wounded shoulder. His face was pale, but his voice remained steady. "No, you are the man who murdered Musa Diarra, attempted to murder Jun-suk, framed Abeni, drugged me, and stole from every employee whose future you placed beneath your greed." Sang Byom looked at him with hatred. "Everything I did was for this family. You did it because you wanted to be the family." The officers pulled Sang Byom to his feet and placed handcuffs around his wrists. As they led him away, he turned toward Abeni. "You will never belong here." Abeni held his gaze. "My father's name was written into this company before yours." The doors closed behind him. Silence settled over the boardroom. The danger had ended, but the emotional weight remained. Tae-yul's knees weakened. Abeni reached him before he fell. "Stay with me." The bullet passed through. "You are still bleeding." "Did we stop the transfer?" "Yes." His eyes searched hers. "Then it was worth it." "Do not say that." Her voice broke. "Do not turn dying for me into another debt." Tae-yul touched her cheek with his blood-stained hand. "It was never debt." Abeni's eyes filled. Before he could say more, his body went limp in her arms. 3 hours later, Abeni sat outside a private operating theater at Seoul Central Hospital. Tae-yul's blood had dried across her hands. Sophia sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders. Do-hyun stood near the window speaking with investigators. Jun-suk was undergoing surgery on another floor. The bullet that had entered his side during the server room attack had missed his heart by less than 2 centimeters. No one knew whether the years of neurological treatment had weakened his body too much for another trauma. Abeni stared at the operating light above Tae-yul's door. "I should have stopped him from standing in front of me." Sophia squeezed her hand. "He made a choice. His family has spent years making choices for other people. That does not mean he did." Abeni looked at her mother. "I spent so long believing every Kwon man would eventually protect the family name before protecting the truth. And now? Now I am afraid he will wake up and regret what the truth cost him." The operating theater doors opened. A surgeon removed his mask. Abeni stood so quickly that the chair struck the wall. "The bullet damaged muscle but missed the major artery," he said. "Mr. Kwon has lost blood, but he will recover." Abeni closed her eyes. The breath she had been holding escaped in a sob. Sophia held her as 11 years of fear, anger, guilt, and exhaustion finally broke through her control. Tae-yul woke the following morning. Abeni was asleep beside his hospital bed with her head resting against her folded arms. Sunlight touched the dried tear marks on her face. He watched her quietly until her eyes opened. She sat upright. "You are awake. You are sleeping in another place you do not have permission to enter." Abeni stared at him. Then, despite everything, she laughed. It was the first time Tae-yul heard the sound fully. "Warm, uncontrolled, alive. You were unconscious," she said. "That is not permission. Should I leave?" His smile faded. "No." She adjusted the blanket over him. The board suspended every executive connected to Sang Byom. Regulators froze the international transfer. "Your uncle has been charged." The police reopened my father's death investigation and the laboratory case. Jun-suk? He survived surgery. Tae-yul closed his eyes with relief. "And my mother is giving a full statement. What about you?" Abeni looked toward the window. "The board wants me to accept 32% ownership immediately. It belongs to you. It belonged to my father. Then decide what it should become." "And your position?" The board will vote when the investigation ends. You could lose control of the company. Control is what created all of this. Tae-yul reached for her hand. His fingers were weak, but she allowed him to hold it. Abeni, I need you to hear something before lawyers and directors begin speaking for us again. She looked at him. I do not love you because you saved me. I do not love you because your father helped build my company. And I do not love you because I owe you. Her breathing stopped. You said it was not love. I was afraid. Of me? Of needing someone whose respect I had not earned. He lifted her hand toward his chest. I love you because you walked into every room carrying your dignity when everyone expected you to lower your head. I love you because you question me when the truth is uncomfortable. And because when you sleep beside me, I feel less haunted by the things I cannot remember. Tears gathered in Abeni's eyes. You are injured and medicated. I was more medicated 11 years ago. This is clearer. She laughed through her tears. That is not funny. You laughed. I am overwhelmed. Then I will wait. His thumb moved across her knuckles. I have already waited 11 years to learn the truth. I can wait for you to trust it. Abeni leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. I do not know how to love someone without preparing to lose them. Neither do I. That is not reassuring. Then we can learn badly together. She closed the final distance and kissed him. It was not a desperate kiss created by danger. It was slow, uncertain, and tender. A promise without pretending the wounds had disappeared. 6 months later, Kwon Access Tower reopened under a new name. The silver letters above the entrance no longer carried one family's identity. They read Diarra Kwon Global Systems. Beneath them stood a smaller inscription. Founded by Musa Ibrahim Diarra and Kwon Dong-wook. Abeni refused the position of ceremonial heiress. Instead, she became co-chairwoman and director of ethical systems development. She created an independent foundation for falsely accused foreign workers and engineers, whose inventions had been taken by powerful corporations. Every patent contract was reviewed publicly. Every senior executive was required to disclose family interests. Tae-yul remained CEO after the employees and shareholders voted to retain him, but his authority was no longer absolute. He accepted the limits willingly. Jun-suk returned to the company only once. He entered the boardroom without cameras or applause and placed the silver compass pendant on the table between himself and Tae-yul. I cannot forgive everything yet, he said. Tae-yul nodded. I will not ask you to, but I do not want to spend another 11 years being angry alone. The brothers sat together until sunset. They did not repair the past that day. They began something more honest. Sophia moved into a small house near the sea outside Busan. Abeni visited every weekend she could. Their reunion was not perfect. Some days ended in tears. Some questions had no answer that could justify the silence. But Sophia stopped hiding, and Abeni stopped pretending forgiveness had to happen all at once. One rainy evening, almost a year after Tae-yul first found her inside his office, he returned to the 72nd floor after midnight. The lights were low. The building was quiet. He opened his office door and stopped. Abeni was sleeping on the sofa beside the window, surrounded by patent documents. Her shoes rested neatly on the floor. A silver flash drive lay on the table. Tae-yul removed his jacket and placed it over her. Her eyes opened immediately. You walk too loudly. You are sleeping in my office again. Our office. That sounds dangerous. She sat up. The Dakar research team sent the final approval. My father's original biometric design will be used to protect hospital records instead of weapons systems. Tae-yul sat beside her. He would be proud. Abeni looked toward the city lights. Sometimes I wish he could see his name above the entrance. Maybe names are not placed above buildings for the dead. Then who are they for? For the people who were taught to believe they did not belong inside. Abeni turned toward him. The powerful CEO who once believed everything in his office belonged to him now waited before taking her hand. She placed her fingers inside his. You never asked why I fell asleep beneath your desk that night, she said. You said you were tired. I had found the flash drive hours earlier. I knew the moment I opened it, I could never return to the life I had built. I sat down because I was afraid. And then you fell asleep. For the first time in 11 years. Tae-yul studied her. Why there? Your father once told me that if I ever returned, your office would be the safest room in the building. He was wrong. About the room. Abeni rested her head against Tae-yul's shoulder. Not about you. Outside, rain moved gently across the windows where a violent storm had once exposed every secret between them. Inside, there were no alarms, no locked doors, and no family names separating one heart from another. Tae-yul kissed the top of her head. "Come home." Abeni looked up at him. "Whose home?" He smiled. "Ours." Together, they turned off the office light and walked toward the door. Above the city, the company built from theft finally belonged to the truth. The brother buried in an empty grave had returned to the living. The mother who disappeared had found her daughter, and the maid everyone overlooked walked out beside the CEO. Not because he had rescued her, but because she had reclaimed the name, the future, and the love that fear had tried to steal from her. If Abeni's courage, Tae-yul's transformation, and the truth behind the company kept you watching until this final moment, like this video, subscribe, and share the story with someone who believes that real love does not erase the past, it gives us the strength to face it. Comment reclaimed below if you believe no lie can bury the truth forever.
What a journey this story has been. Abeni entered Kwon Tae-yul's tower wearing a maid's uniform, and everyone assumed that told them everything they needed to know about her. But beneath that uniform was a brilliant engineer, a rightful heir, a wounded daughter, and the only woman brave enough to uncover a truth powerful men had buried for decades. Tae-yul also began this story believing that power meant control. He trusted his family name, his company, and the version of the past he had been given. But when the truth began destroying everything he believed, he made a different choice. He chose justice over reputation. He chose Abeni's life over his own safety. And eventually he chose love without treating it like a debt he needed to repay. That is what makes their relationship so powerful. Abeni did not need a billionaire CEO to rescue her. She rescued herself by returning for the truth. Tae-yul simply became the man willing to stand beside her while she reclaimed everything that had been stolen. And even though Sungbaeom was finally punished, the deeper victory was not the arrest. It was seeing Abeni's father's name restored, Jun-suk step out of the shadows, Safia reunite with her daughter, and two wounded people learn that love does not require them to forget their pain. It only asks them to stop facing it alone. Now tell me honestly, when did you first realize Abeni was more than a maid? And do you think you could forgive a family after everything they did to her? Comment reclaimed below if you believe no lie can bury the truth forever. Like this video, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes that dignity, justice, and true love will always find their way back home.